Before we get this party started, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. You know, our friends over at Ritual Colorado, the one-stop shop for all your cannabis associated needs. Rigs for the casual consumer all the way up to the connoisseur. Maybe you're looking for a new dab tool. Maybe you're looking for a torch or a new, flower dry vape. There's something for everyone at Ritual Colorado. Be sure you check them out at 2521 Sheridan Boulevard, right there in Edgewater. Or you can go to their website, ritual-co.com. Use promo code Stoned Appetit to get free shipping. That's Ritual Colorado, the best of all the selections. Cheers. And don't forget about our friends over at Breckenridge Distillery. We would be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to our friends that are not only curating the summer cocktail of the seasons, but they also got the seltzers in play as well. You can find Breckenridge distilled products across the whole state, including that local liquor store at the corner of your street. Check them out. You can check them out on their website. You can find all the details on their social media at Breck Distillery. I personally like the Reeky Limes. Cheers.
The suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians, and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
It's one of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
For those that just missed it, I did the Wayne's World game on sign. So we're back in action. As always, this is your host, Kip Wilson. This is Stoned Appetit. Across the screen from me today, we have Queen Eve in the 2 seat. How are you, Eve?
I'm doing well, Kip. How are you feeling?
I'm doing well. The car is still under the weather, so we'll pick that up later this week, but immobile. So we're going to cook at home tonight. It's foreign, but I was debating maybe ordering Popeyes, and I was like, no, don't be ordering Popeyes. Just eat at home. So I'm going to be a responsible person tonight, but I'm doing well today. We've had a lot of things to talk about yesterday's, and it's rolled into today. I think we teased it on yesterday's podcast, but Eve and I are joined by the cannabis columnist for Denver Westword, Thomas Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, how are you today? Woo!
I'm doing well. It's an honor to be on.
Dude, yeah. Well, I mean, we follow your work. You kind of are one of the guiding lights here in the community. You kind of do the actual work that should be done, so that we can find out what's going on in the community, because otherwise we're none the wiser, just because you have to be heavily entrenched in it without seeing it, come across your feed. So you're kind of our beacon for that, and we appreciate you. We like to start every episode the same way, just to kind of see how bad you suck or how cool you may be. Are you a transplant or a native to Colorado?
Transplant.
Okay, where'd you come from?
Arizona.
Oh, Zona. All right. Phoenix,
yeah.
or in one of those hot communities further south or north?
Yeah, it's called the tri-state area of Southwest, I guess. It's right where like Arizona, Nevada, and California meet a town called Bullhead City. It's like right on the Colorado River across from Laughlin, Nevada. It's near Lake Havasu. It's near like a bunch of towns that are known, but we're not so much.
Okay. Well, hey, I've heard of Lake Havasu, and then I feel like there's that little fourplex of like clusterfuck where all y'all sit together and people converge on that point on the latitude line where it's like the 4 states cross. So I kind of roughly know the area, but what brought you to Colorado?
I had some cousins out here for a while, so I'd visit them. Always liked it, and then got an email from like I forget who it was, like the head of my major program in college one day, and so like, surprise, you're graduating in a semester, not a year. It's like, I was kind of looking forward to that 5th year there. So I had to scramble for an internship. I remembered reading Westword when I'd visit, so I reached out to them about that. Just written a a story about a medical marijuana dispensary that got rejected in Scottsdale at the time. So sent that over, and they're just like, "Oh, do you like weed?" And I was, 21 years old. I was like, "Yeah, I like weed," and it turned into a full-time gig.
That's pretty fucking cool. Because I was gonna ask, like, was it the love of the plant that led you to applying for said position? But it sounds like it was kind of kismet. The love for the plant made it an easier job to have.
Yeah, definitely. I got in this probably like most, dudes that got into journalism school. I wanted to write about sports and, wanted to write about like for Sports Illustrated, not exactly the same magazine I grew up on. But yeah, happy to be where I'm at. And it was a pretty cool, I guess, confluence of events there.
Yeah, and you've kind of got the pulse of the community down here in Colorado. You're able to report on one of the, I guess, the front lines of the industry, especially, on a day-to-day, but also in a situational and political stance as well. So we're going to ask you a bunch of those questions. I think a lot of folks are curious to hear more about the story that kind of shook our world, as we're someone that kind of dances on that fine line of gray opportunities and business ventures. But we saw that there was a big crackdown, and we want to talk a lot about that. But, the real thing that everyone's talking about in the streets is the movie or Barbie or Oppenheimer. And I have to know, I know you went and saw Barbie last night. How does it stack up? Give us your review. And I want to let you know that Eve will judge you for this. Like, that is 100% what she's going to do.
I only judge you, Kip.
Oh, thanks.
I haven't had the time to carve out like half a day to go see Oppenheimer yet. Like, it takes, real time, because I need to get like properly high if I'm going to go see that movie too. I feel like I can't just, just show up and go. So probably like going to spend like a solid 5 hours around that movie between like drinks, food, and the preparation for that. Barbie was great though. I went with my girlfriend, my mom, and her mom. It was a little, I guess, family date. Didn't have a pink shirt, had to settle for lavender. It was a pretty good time.
You're just Kim. You're just Kim.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was enough, I guess, for the girlfriend. Yeah. No, I thought it was really funny. I thought that it just really towed the line well. Kind of have mixed feelings about like this whole corporate movie landscape that we're heading into between like Air and Barbie and all that kind of stuff that's going on. But the movie itself was hilarious. Loved all the discontinued products. Big fan of Midge, the discontinued friend.
Okay, so yeah, there's a couple throwbacks, those nostalgia buttons that are kind of pressed on behalf of you. So it kind of resonates. And then obviously everyone knows of the political undertones and things of that nature. Out of 10, we use decimals here because round numbers don't suffice, don't really tell the full story. It's a bang scale, so it's out of 10. How hard does it fuck? Would it bang again? Would you go see it twice?
I would go see it twice if it were like, a friend group thing. I'm not just going to go see it twice, like just because one person hasn't seen it. I'd give it like, an 8.1, I guess.
All
yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I'm new to the decimal thing. Yeah, but it was really good. And I like the whole world building thing. I'm not a multiverse guy, but I like when someone builds something and it's creative with it,
I dig it. Eve, how did his review come in? Is it up to snuff?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Hell yeah. All right. So we at least broke the ice. We learned a little bit about you. I guess one thing we should all know is what's your favorite way to get high?
I'm still old school. I'm a flower guy, like a joint or a bong at the end of the day.
All right. So we'll say, do you have a strain or a shop that you like to go kind of, hang out in?
My job, is pretty cool. It takes me to a lot of the stores kind of regularly, whether it's like new stores or just kind of checking up on various things. That's kind of fun about it. Been pretty partial to the South Broadway stretch and kind of the South Denver area, Greenfields, a cut above, Colorado Harvest. Comes with strains. I love the gassy stuff, man. Gas and cheese. It's not kind of hard to find those at the moment, but that's always what I've been sticking to. I'm not a big candy guy.
I can understand that. That's, to each their own. And I think I'd say I'm a flower guy, but I'm really not as often, just because we're constantly on the go and you can't maintain that buzz if we're out in public as easily. So I was joking that I accidentally left all my edibles in my backpack in the car, and we melted them into one big fucking edible. So we're in kind of a pickle, but we're biting it off like one of those cookies you get from the mall.
Right.
So it's edibles, and then
Okay.
traveling, and so you got to conceal the carts, and then the flour. I mean,
Yep.
we don't turn down any flour, so we'll smoke just about anything we get our hands on, from behind the liquor store to, our favorite dispensaries. I won't discriminate.
So, quick question. How do you what are some edibles that aren't like some go-to edibles that aren't like have a lot of sugar in them? I feel like every time I, want to do the edibles thing, I got a pretty high tolerance. I end up eating like, 9 gummies or something like that.
Like looking for like a savory one, because like
Yeah,
just think of like,
not as sugary.
I mean, I feel like they all kind of target the sweet base. One thing that I would recommend kind of in that instance is like the liquid THC, or like the drops, like, so the liquid THC from Dialed In, I think Eureka has one as well. You can add that shit to anything. So you can make like a mocktail and get zooted, or you can just, knock back a shot or 4, and you have those 40 milligrams. That's not a bad way to do it. And if you're a medicinal guy, the Bayou Bites, they have 1,000 milligram liquid like syrup that you can knock back, and it'll literally knock you back. Like it'll put your dick in the dirt. But we've had Chris accidentally mistaken that 1,000 for a 100 before. And so he took a swig or two, and I wish he was here to talk about it. But he was like, man, my girlfriend was out of town. I answered the phone. I was like, hey, I think I like misdosed on this. I'm gonna go take a nap. And he woke up like 11 hours later, like,
oh my God,
ready to tackle the next day, but still like stoned and have like, I guess, tracers.
It's like when a dog gets into the edibles. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then there's obviously like those truffle oils and things like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then butter, obviously. But I'm trying to think if there's actually like a savory chip or like a pretzel.
Yeah, or even like peanut butter, like
that's true.
you
There's
know, like
numb nuts. I'm losing my mind over here.
I
Numb
really
nuts
haven't heard of this one.
Oh, they're fucking wonderful. And, we'll talk about them a little bit as we dive into, private events and things of that nature, as they're friends of the program, but they have both THC and CBD variants.
Solid.
And they have them in ranging of medicinal size. So like you mentioned, you have a heavier tolerance, scrape a little bit of this on a piece of bread. You'll be right as rain.
That sounds great. I'm gonna have to look into that one.
Numb nuts is the name of that one. Good call. I was kind of, it's like when someone asks you for the best restaurant or a restaurant, it's hard to like name one off the top of your head.
Right.
That's what.
You came through right there. I'm definitely gonna look them up. Yeah, easy to remember too.
There's hot sauces too. I think you can find them at places like Frost. But anyways, I digress. So we wanted to talk because you dropped a kind of a bomb that shook our world. Denver cracking down on marijuana events and venues. And obviously we're podcast hosts, so we're, more on the media side, but we don't really know exactly what that means. So we're kind of operating sometimes by having these little parties or events in the surrounding areas. But what happened that, like the dominoes fell for all of these people in one fell swoop that caused all these violations and notifications?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that part out. I think there's, a lot of different variables that are going on right now. I thought, based on who got these notices, like the violations and stuff, I thought it was interesting on who got them and who didn't. Obviously, there's a lot other, venues and events that have been going on that are cannabis friendly that weren't included in that. There's been some finger pointing on maybe some strategic complaints have been going on. I think it's important to note too that, once or twice every year, city of Denver kind of sends out a memo. Just they do some sort of show of force to remind event holders and venues that they don't view these private events as necessarily legal.
Yeah, so necessarily legal. And that's something we also wanted to talk about, because some of those businesses we saw on there are the same, like Dwayne and Tetra. They had a fucking ribbon cutting last year with the government. And then the government comes in and stonewalls the efforts through business plan proposals or HVAC problems. And like they keep moving the field goal posts. So like what is the answer to this? Because we're seeing folks that are getting dinged, like Ant Life is providing, a safe place for folks that are creatives and things of that nature to come
Right.
in. And like, if they're having 25 people in for a sesh, juxtaposed to us having 25 of our friends coming over for a live recording of the podcast and just smoking out the studio in the backyard. Like, how are they picking and choosing? What is actually, how do we decide in those instances?
I think it has to do with advertising. And this is from like the city's point of view. I think when it comes to how they decide to crack down is how is it promoted? Is there admission to the event? What's like, I guess, given out at the event? Are there like samples and these types of things? So these are like all, I guess, the kind of stuff that the city looks at. But then I think it's a lot of selective enforcement too, when you talk about Dwayne and what's legal, I think Dwayne kind of got held up in this kind of moment where Colorado was getting dragged in the news for not having, these social equity operators. Here's Dwayne, who's a Black man that's owned a private social club, a cannabis club, since 2018. Did all the right things to try to get licensed with the city, I guess, trying to get his application in. Gets approved by the state, the Marijuana Enforcement Division, and then they have this ribbon cutting. But then after that, excise and license, the licensing department clarified that just because you're approved for a license doesn't necessarily mean you have one. So it's been, almost a year and a half since that ribbon cutting. Dwayne still doesn't have a license. So they've legalized social consumption, but you could argue that they've legalized it out of to extinction pretty much. The rules to get a venue are pretty strict. You can't be within 1,000 feet of like a park, a school, a recreation center, another hospitality establishment. So a lot of these venues that probably are offering them, I don't know what Ant Life rounds up to, or a Marijuana Mansion, or some of these other venues, but they might not even be able to get a license if they wanted to, just because of these setback requirements.
So like you did mention it, and we kind of debriefed, or I was yelling into a void yesterday. I was just fuming. There's a combo of problems, but at the same time, it's like we're set up to fail, and that they're just doing this to appease the concept. But like, otherwise, what do they expect everybody to do? Do they not see the writing on the wall of like, when we do nothing, like being reactive instead of proactive is not the approach, i.e. California. But at the same time, we're losing our tourism dollars as it becomes more legalized across the country, more mainstreamed. We're seeing other states have these possible like consumption lounges, with whether they have like alcohol combos or whether they have food combos. They're playing by different rules, and it seems like we've set our rules so stringent that they just don't want us to ever succeed.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting when, I never thought Arizona would be beating Colorado in social cannabis consumption, but
yeah, they're having like fucking festivals in the middle of soccer parks. Like I'm watching our friends that operate here in Colorado, but down in Arizona, they're like, they don't have, I guess, a med team or, the department or whatever yet established. So I'm sure there will be something in play, but like even places like Illinois, I mean, everyone's coming around on it, except our government seems to try to be stonewalling the process or progress.
Well, it's interesting too, because the government does seem to come around on it once a year, right? The 420 festival, there's no citations for public marijuana consumption. And, no one's denying that that's rampant during the 420 festival every year, which is organized by an out of state. Yeah, or every Red Rock show. Exactly. So I think, a lot of it comes down to, who's enforcing these rules and, who's, running the department. Excise and license is usually the department that's responsible for this stuff. I've heard, district attorneys for Denver in the past say that, it's kind of a waste of time on resources, because the most that they can give a lot of these private parties is like a clean indoor air act violation ticket, which is like $150. So it's kind of hard. I think this is the first time that you've seen them show this violation of operating without a proper license. When you're someone like Dwayne, who's actively applying, could be pretty serious. But I think it kind of depends on what the mayor wants. We have a new mayor now. Previously, I mean, you can look at Denver's relationship with social consumption dating back to 2012. And it's just kind of always been a small bubble that the city pops whenever they feel it gets too big. The International Church of Cannabis in like 2018, 2019, they had private clubs that were shut down in, 2014, 2015. And then Tetra, has had undercover cops show up in the place before too. So it's definitely something that the city keeps on its radar. And I don't know. I know there's people in excise and license that they say they really want to see social consumption work and have successful examples. Everyone's got a job and a boss, I guess, but I guess it all comes from the top, or I can't say that definitively, but shit flows downhill, right?
Yeah. And we have friends that work in that department. And, I think they've expressed frustration with how, the process is kind of skewed, or it's meant to be stonewalled in different avenues or through different channels to where the water just runs dry and people would give up. And so it kind of makes you wonder. And we wanted to kind of learn the insides and outs for this, maybe for those that are trying to make sure we play by certain rules and things of that nature. You mentioned Cirrus in the article. We know Aaron over there. They're doing great work and kind of making progress. Like,
nice.
what hoops do the next people have to jump through just to kind of get the process started? Like you mentioned, it may not even be feasible for Ant Life to get the proper licensing because of, a litany of different reasons. But what's the first steps that somebody needs to do so that they don't get fined if they were perhaps going to host a series of football related parties this autumn? Hide in the burbs.
I guess it's hard to answer that right now, because a lot of these events that have been going on even before this crackdown, through the city's point of view and how they've acted in the past, you could argue weren't following the rules. It's just kind of when the city wants to do it, and the state law about what's private and public comes up often, and I don't think there's really been a definitive answer to that yet. So I guess, even though it doesn't help, my answer would just be to not piss off the city, or the people that, have connections or complaints with the city.
We've often said that we love Mayor Johnston. We said it just yesterday, right, Eve? And I enjoyed his inauguration, getting to see our friends at the Motet and eat some delicious food from Stoic and Genuine. We fucking love this mayor. Let me just go ahead and recant my comments from yesterday. No, but I mean, that's obviously always the case. Like, like you said, shit rolls downhill. And if you make someone's life miserable above you, they'll in turn return that favor.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, it's really hard with the way the rules are set up, because if you want to be a venue that just hosts a cannabis friendly event, like, once a month or something, it's just not really economically feasible to do that. You have to really be committed to be a cannabis friendly venue. You can't have an active liquor license if you're going to be doing these consumption friendly events. It's really hard, from what I've heard, to find like a location that can do, food service. I don't think there's a ban on that, but from what I understand, it's really hard to, add cannabis to a restaurant. And then, like I said, those location rules, from what I like, are just really hard to comply with in terms of getting in an area that is a hot area. You don't want to open a cannabis lounge where there's zero foot traffic and no one wants to hang out at. So I really hope the Cirrus Lounge gets off well. It's in a cool area. There's stuff to do around there. Sounds like they have some fun ideas for it. So hopefully that provides a place here soon for those types of events that can be more out in the eye, on the public eye, I guess. Right.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that always kind of makes me wonder is, like, I feel like once we see, how much money, you would be making from insert this here, it's always a political thing. They're like, oh shit, we could have been making so much money in tax revenue from just having, like, whatever, you levy on a consumption lounge. So I just always thought that, like, does money talk? Can we, like, start to find ways into the excise and license community? Or, like, is there a way to get, like, these rules to expand? Because how it was once explained to us from somebody in the E&L department was, Colorado, being a health-centric state, did everything in their power to make smoking cigarettes indoors illegal or impossible to do without getting a fuck ton of fines, like the Clean Air Act and things like that. The health department comes down and dings you. And so the, like, I guess the parameters on what HVAC, equipment and ventilation you have to have is so expensive, and it's like prices everybody out of the market. Is there any chance that we could start working our way back towards like exceptions to the rules, or like lobbying for, I guess, laws, or I guess amendments?
So from what I understand, the bill that originally passed, or the law that allows, these types of consumption lounges, they are exempt from the Clean Indoor Air Act.
Okay.
But when you have local licensees having their own rules, I think that's when it comes into play. The venue owners I've talked to say they have to comply with an international business law that Denver adopted. It's not something Denver created, and that's where these ventilation rules get so hard to pass, from what I understand. So I really don't know like how to get around that right now. And like, I don't see those rules changing from excise and licenses anytime soon. Even when they had the transition meeting from Hancock to Johnston, excise and license had, a meeting for concerns about their department overall, or what do you want to see done? And excise and license doesn't just handle pot; they handle short-term rentals and or liquor. Obviously, gambling. They handle so many different things. And a lot of the conversation was centered on how do we keep pot out of the hands of children. That wasn't the transition committee's choice. That was more about members in the audience. But those are the messages that the mayor's getting. That's the message that excise and license is getting right now. So, and based on, Johnston's past, I wouldn't expect those rules to expand anytime
Okay,
soon.
so then I think the next logical answer is to do what other businesses have been doing. Those that make unbelievably the best food are those that maybe go out of the hottest spots and maybe look to go to surrounding communities. We've seen Aurora is very friendly to small businesses that want to change locations, like come open your shop here. And we're seeing a lot. It's a facelift across that city, and it's fucking booming with tons of people. Are there like safe havens or places that would be like more susceptible, like the Karma House in Lakewood? They have, the Kratom and Cava options, which Denver, I don't know if there's different rules for different cities that are surrounding the areas. Are there maybe friendlier options for those that may be navigating or looking around?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, friendlier, maybe options that are, less on the radar at the moment. I know that there's some events that have been going down on the South Broadway portion of Inglewood. It's pretty popular. I am pretty sure that there's some stuff going on in like Thornton, Adams County area. And Adams County, unincorporated Adams County, as back in previous times when Denver's kind of cracked down, that's where some events have gone on in the past. So yeah, I think that will definitely happen. You'll see event holders looking elsewhere, and then Denver kind of loses its mojo. There was a lot of fun events going on around Denver right when all this happened, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go elsewhere.
Yeah, but don't worry, 420 Fest will be back in Civic Center Park this April. Dude, I appreciate you taking the time. You've given us a lot of insight. We wanted to know how to make sure we play by the rules going forward, because that definitely sent a little scare, and then obviously the other things that have kind of compounded on top of that. When the news broke, it seemed like it was a powder keg of a conversation that needs to be had, at least inside the community. So thanks for shedding a little light into the public policy and the government side of it. We're just gonna have to keep our nose clean and make sure we keep our head on a swivel.
Yeah, I think when we see it takes one person, right, to kind of break out there and do that event. So I think when you see one or two events being held that aren't shut down or violations being issued, I think we might see it spark up. But when that happens, who knows?
Nobody wants to be the next one or the first after the clean sweep. It's like shit.
Right. Yeah, no one wants to take that first flight.
Fuck
hey,
no,
thanks for having me, man.
Hey, thank you so much. Before we leave, Eve, did we miss anything?
I don't think so, unless you want to ask them one of your fun questions.
Can we ask you a fun question?
Yeah, please.
It's called the Stoned Appetit Question of the Week, and it's brought to you by Riki Seltzers, R-I-K-I. It's the seltzer of the summer, courtesy of our friends over at Breckenridge Distillery. The question is, let's say you had a long night. You were covering the beat. A lot of people are getting fines, and there's a lot of parties going down. You get home, you just want to get torched on the couch, maybe fall asleep. But before you do, you need that guilty pleasure snack. What's that go-to old reliable that's always in the fridge, freezer, or pantry that you can always munch on before bedtime?
Oh, barbecue Pringles.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Ever since my childhood, man, it's just, they've always been there. Always
Okay.
there for me. Yeah.
Do you ever do the stackers where you add a second flavor, or do you just keep like backups of the barbecue on deck?
You know, I tried and was like, kind of got really excited and was like ultimately disappointed. It's all just salt and MSG at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. I was just talking about Popeyes. That sounds wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but Walmart's got this honey hot flavor. I don't know where it came from, but now that, you know, that's a stone delicacy.
I saw a
Yeah.
habanero one the other day, and I was like, they're getting a little flavorful over here. They're no
Yeah.
longer appealing to the people of Midwest America. It's like they're getting some crazy flavors out there I didn't expect. It's like
Yeah.
the konbini, or the Japanese bodegas that have the crazy
Yes.
flavors. I'm starting to see with the Pringles. I dig it.
Yeah, that and Kit Kats, man. Everything, right?
They're so delicious. Well, again, we do appreciate you taking the time. Have a great afternoon. Next round of beers is on me.
Sweet. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, y'all.